Emily, even though Tier 1 of the next phase technically starts today, I found out some in that group have already received the vaccine. I reached out to a number of first responders in the area to get their reaction at being next in line. State ranks 19th nationally when you talk about the rate of the population who's taken the vaccine. Today I talked to a long-term care facility nursing director. She told me why it's important for 120 people to get the vaccine today. Almost half of those are residents.
Welcome back. 33 states have introduced new voting bills since the 2020 election, and Missouri is one of them. KLB8's Kenedee Fowler shares with us how these new bills could affect minority voters.
Missouri voting bills would institute stricter voter ID requirements for early in-person voting and Election Day voting. Some lawmakers say this will prevent fraudulent votes. District 31 Representative Dan Stacy of Blue Springs says an ID is something majority of people should already have. He's co-sponsoring HB 334.
Most areas in life require photo ID, including renting and driving or even buying a car, purchasing alcohol or cigarettes, opening a bank account, a mortgage.
Representative Stacy feels having an ID for voting is just as important.
And a question could be asked, are any of these endeavors any more important than providing elections that can be trusted?
Columbia's NAACP President Mary Ratliff says some African American voters don't have these resources.
There are people that live in out areas, rural Missouri, and all who do not have transportation, and even in the inner cities, they don't have. And older African American people many times do not even, don't have driver's license. They don't have photo IDs.
There are currently a handful of other restrictive voting bills in Missouri, which the Brennan Center for Justice compiled. House Bill 738 requires identification to register to vote and for in-person voting using an absentee ballot. Senate Bill 282 will eliminate COVID-19 as an excuse to vote by mail, and House Bill 815 will repeal mail-in voting. Eliza Swearenbecker of the Brennan Center says requiring a voter ID will be another hurdle for the Black and brown voters.
That would just make it harder for voters to access their ballot, their right to vote. It would put another stumbling block in the way of voters, making it more difficult for them to meet the requirements to be able to cast their ballots.
Stacy doesn't believe this will affect Black and brown voters at all.
Everything you hear about voter suppression on voter ID is a myth. It is just totally a talking point.
The American Civil Liberties Union says there is proof, saying 1 in 13 Black Americans cannot vote nationwide because of what the group terms disenfranchisement laws.
I think that this is all meant to suppress the African American vote, and we're very unhappy about it. It's been fighting a long time.
If the bill passes, voters without a voter ID will be able to cast a provisional ballot. Those who need assistance can receive one free Missouri photo ID through the Missouri Department of Revenue. Graduates have had the option to pause their federal student loan payments since last March. President Joe Biden signed an executive order extending that pause until the end of September. One MU graduate remains optimistic about getting her loans paid.
I'm a firm believer in that, again, when I need something, it will be there. And so, for me personally, I'm just very blessed that my parents both have great paying jobs. And in the time now, my mom's like, you know what, I know. Because right now, my job now is just enough to pay my rent.
MU Assistant Extension Professor says there's no downside to taking a break in payments.
If you're somebody who is on something like public service loan forgiveness, where you make so many payments and then the balance gets forgiven, you should definitely take this, because even though we're not making payments, it's still counting each month as if we are.
Those who already had their payments paused since March do not have to contact their servicer. McGauley says there is no process for pausing your payments. The nonprofit has provided service to Columbia's senior citizens for 26 years. Director of Kitchen and Dining Rusty Bell says less elderly residents are coming in because they're afraid of the pandemic. This creates its own problems.
We're strapped for cash, and with a lot fewer people coming in to the facility, every month is a little tougher.
Prior to COVID, the center provided lunch with a buffet, but the pandemic forced them to take it out, causing the center to need more volunteers for serving.
Because of the limitations caused by COVID and stuff, some of us are limited when we can get out. So it helps to have more volunteers to cover all the times that we need to have covered.
The senior center is offering $5 meals for the month of January. Bell says anybody can take advantage of the meals as long as they are sober and act in a neighborly fashion. The new year brought some ice to mid-Missouri. Although dangerous, some say it's a welcome sight.
That's a wintry Christmas picture. Ice all over the branches and trees. The grass is completely encased in ice, and the streets are pretty icy as well. Very dangerous kind of conditions to be walking on.
But it wasn't all pretty. Some woke up to broken tree branches.
I came out, kind of assess if anything major happened. I don't have any major damage right now, just a few limbs off of one of my big trees.
Jackson says the ice is causing his tree's branches to hang low and break.
Boone County residents can now sign up for vaccine update emails. The health department says residents can complete an online survey to be notified when the vaccine is available to them. Missouri is currently in phase 1A of the rollout, which includes vaccinating long-term care facility residents and staff, along with healthcare workers. Phase 2 is for increased risk populations. Missouri residents over age 16 can get the vaccine during phase 3.
It's really hard to tell how long it's going to take to go from phase to phase. And some phases will have more people in them than others. And so it's really unsure at this point. And that's why we've created this sign up email list. So that way we can inform people when it is their turn.
Hum says people don't realize this isn't a speedy process.
Some of the misconceptions were that this rollout would be very quick and everyone would be vaccinated in a month. And that's just not the case.
We have a link to the online survey on our website. Reporting in the newsroom, Kenedee Fowler, KMU8 News.